Hello guys, Voltolon here and welcome to Decklist, a series where we test and showcase the latest in deck building innovation. Today we're taking a look at Wind Psychic, a deck that is featured on the cover art of the 40th of the Whirlwind set. But before we start, I'm hosting a new Discord server, which the link to it will be in the description below. It will be a Rush Duel centric server where you can find more resources about the game, learn more about format, play games, and participate in events, which I will be hosting regularly within that server. For people who know me in other communities, I normally help out just like hosting events, helping other people learn the format more, help their deck out and whatnot. But with my own personal server, I'll have the maximum possible creative freedom to host the events that I want and to run the server however I want, so that's why I'm doing this. And while I'm at it, thank you for 51 now, I guess, 50 subscribers. I'm surprised that there are even 50 of you that want to actually watch me ramble on about card games. So, and if you want to interact with me more, I guess you can join that server for that purpose as well, but again, it's intended for Rush Duel stuff. So again, link will be in the description below if you want to check that out. Now that that announcement is out of the way, let's take a look at the deck itself. Wind Psychic has a gimmick where they care about the number of cards in both players' hands. Bandijo gains 300 attack per the total number of cards in both players' hands. The prophecy phrase makes everyone discard all their cards and does a bigger effect equal to the number of cards you send to the graveyard per its hand ripping effect, and Asphalt gives your opponent's cards and also gains attacks similar to Bandijo. In practice, focusing entirely around its hand disruption game plan isn't particularly reliable. There are some anime cards that will probably be printed in this set as well, but for now we've chosen to ignore those just to get this video out of the way, I'll be honest. And I'll probably revisit this deck when we get more of the Wind Psychic support, but for now, there is still some things you can do with this deck. Bandijo can get a pretty big chunk of attack just with tribute summoning this plus 2 other cards in hand. Using Bandijo's effect to add another low level psychic noble monster back to your hand means that you have at least 3 cards in hand, which means that Bandijo will get at least 3400 attack unless you used up your cards earlier on in the turn. But you should at least get to 3400, and there are other ways to get more cards into your hand to get an even bigger Bandijo. So the goal of this build of the deck is to be a glass cannon aggro deck. Bandijo can get a big amount of attack, and the equipped spell, the Heavy Arms Double Excalibur, can give you 2 attacks with one of your Psychic type monsters, assuming you discard a Wind Psychic for its effect, meaning that your damage output can be incredibly high. Combining this with Jam Set, which can remove one of your opponent's level 8 or lower monsters, and Secret Order, which can cheat out a Beat Stick for practically free, you can really get a lot of damage in a single turn. So let's go over the card by card. Firstly, 3 copies of Bandijo, the Battle Ballad. It's only activatable during the turn you normal summon it, and you have to pay 1000 life points, but you can add a level 2 or lower Psychic type normal monster from your graveyard to your hand, and gain attack equal to the total number of cards in both players' hands from 300 until the end of the turn. Which means that if your opponent has like 1 or 2 cards maybe stuck in their hand, you can get even more attack for that. The problem with this card is that it pays 1000 life points, which isn't something you can always pay, and it's only during the turn you normal summon it, so you can't like reborn to activate the effect or whatever. But it's still a pretty nice card in getting a large chunk of attack. 2 copies of Can Speedy. If you have another face-up Omega Psychic or Psychic type monster on your field, you can mill 1, and then the 1 face-up monster on your field gains 200 attack, and your opponent cannot activate trap cards when it declares an attack. So this is a way to play around certain trap cards like Cross Target, Hard Defense Mission, and often you'll be stacking it on top of the Bandijo so that your biggest beat stick doesn't just die to a random trap. But you can also use it on itself to make it bigger than 25, which matters against a lot of the cards in the format like Oblivion and whatnot that just have 2500 attack. Obviously this doesn't protect against every single trap. Mirror Force can still activate if you attack with something that isn't the monster that you targeted with Speedy, and Torrential Tribute can still activate because it's a normal summon. But against the certain traps like the ones that we mentioned earlier, it is pretty relevant against. 1 copy of Gift Taurus. This is mainly here because it gains attack without needing to cost life points. Similar to Can Speedy, but the Gift Taurus can get up to 3200 attack, as it gains 400 attack for every other Psychic type monster on your field, which is a pretty decent amount of attack, and it's just like an emergency beat stick if you can't use the Bandijo properly. 3 copies of the Handy Lady. This is meant for the 3 copies of Secret Order in this deck. Secret Order just combines very well with the Heavy Arms Double Excalibur, Either you're equipping this onto your Bandijo and then getting a Secret Order to get that big chunk of damage, or you can use Secret Order to get the Psychic type monster on your field that has a respectable attack stat to be equipped with the Excalibur. So overall very strong card, especially in this deck. 2 copies of the Ampler Glee is just a beat stick kill. If there are other good Wind Psychics that get printed in this set, you will probably replace this with those just because those have more utility, but for now a 1500 beat stick is completely fine. Sometimes you might struggle with having 3 high levels on board. Secret Order is the way to do that, but not always. Ampler Glee, you can use it to just fill up that 3rd slot and just beat your opponent down with it. 3 copies of the Progress Porter. This is one of probably the best Wind Psychic that you have access to that isn't a high level. It shovels 5 monsters from graveyard into the deck, then shovels up to 2 cards from your opponent's graveyard into the deck. Then you can draw cards equal to the number of Progress Porter and Pot of Avarice with different names in your graveyard. So originally I was trying out Pot of Avarice in this deck as well to increase your hand size so your Bandijo gets even bigger, but that was in practice a bit too greedy. So I just decided to not run that. But drawing 1 card out of the Progress Porter is still fine, as it lets you just maintain the number of cards in your hand and make your Bandijo bigger than normal. And it lets you shuffle some of your cards back into your deck, which lets you recycle your copies of Bandijo, your Speedy, your Gift Towers and whatnot, and hopefully draw into those later on in the game, if you've, let's say, milled too many of them early on. 2 copies of the Trace Spectre of Celestial Severance and 3 copies of Amazing Dealer. These are your consistency pieces. Your Bandijo needs your level 2 or lower Psychic type normal monster in your graveyard. You need your Handy Lady for Secret Order. You need your low levels for Gem Set. There are a lot of things that you do want in your graveyard, and these Celestial Severance is able to get you there by checking the top 3 and sending one of them to the graveyard. And Amazing Dealer is great for early consistency. In practice, I was having problems with bricking and just not finding your cards in time. Amazing Dealer helps you just dig through your deck, and it's really helpful to have something that lets you dig through your deck faster in an aggro deck like this that wants to find all their pieces as fast as possible. So Amazing Dealer is very good in this deck. And in most decks, realistically, Amazing Dealer just letting you discard 3 and draw 3 is very strong. 3 copies of Roman-Pick. This is the best Psychic monster in the game. If your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can pay 500 to mill 3, and then if you milled a Psychic monster from among those, you can add any Psychic from your graveyard to your hand. You can add other copies of itself, you can add the Bandijo back, you can add Speedy in certain matchups, or even Gift Towers, or even just low levels like Progress Portal and whatnot to activate those effects as well. Roman-Pick just does a lot when you draw it, but it isn't a necessity to always have it. If this deck doesn't have that many life point payment outlets, you have the Amazing Dealer for early game setups for this, and you have the Bandijo that pays 1000, but you're not fully focused on activating Roman-Pick, even though it is one of the best cards in the deck. It is not a mandatory requirement to always find this in order to win the game. You can definitely win the game even without this card, but it is still very strong. We do need some low-level no monsters for the Bandijo, so we are playing 3 copies of Candy and 3 copies of Roborim. Roborim is important because it is a wind attribute Psychic monster, which means you can add it off of Bandijo and then discard it for double Excalibur's effect. So you can basically guarantee yourself the Excalibur fodder if you really need to. Otherwise, Candy is still a fine add. It has less stats overall, but it's still a target for Bandijo, and the part we care about here is the fact that it gains a large amount of attack, and the extra fodder means that you can probably tribute summon another monster alongside it as well. Now for the spell cards, 3 copies of Ship of 7 Treasures. You don't really want to keep Handy Lady in your hand, and Bandijo is sometimes just not live because you've lost too much life points early on in the game. So Ship of 7 Treasures is pretty nice as well. Also combines well with the Roman-Pick, as you can discard your high levels and add them back with the Roman-Pick later on. 3 copies of Gem Set. This helps with your ODK lines alongside your Excaliburs and whatnot. Gem Set overall very strong card, and the fact we have more Gem Set fodder than normal is a boon to it as well. Normally people just play the 3 Candy or even 1 extra Howling Bird, but because we're forced to play like a Roborim or something, we have 6 different Gem Set targets here, so Gem Set is very consistently live. 2 double Excalibur, it can get bricky at 3, and you don't always need it in your combo lines, but if you do draw it, it is pretty nice. And also I didn't really have the space to fit the 3rd one even if I wanted to. 3 copies of Secret Order, very strong card. I don't think I need to elaborate too much on this one. It's just a very strong card, just reborn for your level 7 no monster, and it even gives it 700 attack plus the protection from trap destruction. That's overall very strong card. And also 1 Torrential Tribute. We have a lot of ways to deal damage in this deck, but not a lot of ways to beat through set 3 powers outside of the Excalibur, which you aren't always able to have. Torrential Tribute gives you 1 extra way to end the game and just finish your opponent off. And we have a side deck here that I'm not going to elaborate on, but Important things to know is the Prophecy Phrase, while not in the main deck, is pretty nice against Maximum, Esprit as well. The Divergence is also a way to have back removal in this deck if you need it. And personally, I felt like there was a bit too many engine pieces for me to fit the Divergence in, but this deck does not like macro that much, so you should probably try to fit in that Divergence somewhere. Now that we have gone over the deck list, let's take a look at some gameplay. Our first game is against Fusion Thunder, and this game is realistically less of a game against Fusion Thunder and more a display of power. And you'll see why shortly. We will go first, drawing a Secret Order. We'll show some treasures to discard the Bandijo, and then we'll draw 2 cards. We'll use Celestial Severance. We'll try to find something here we need our setup right now. We go through the Progress Portal, the Amplaglee, and the Candy. We choose to send the Candy for future gem set activations, and then we'll set everything else and pass back to them. They will draw a Spirit of Bolt of Inspiration, which they will normal summon and use to shuffle back the Candy into our deck, milling the Stormbolt Destroyer. To normal summon 2 Surge Bolt Lizards and then use the Fusion to fuse them into the Surge Bolt Dragoon, which is a Surge Vortex Dragoon rather. It is a 2500 vanilla in this situation because they don't have the Electrical Discharge in their graveyard at the moment. They'll set their other Fusion, go to battle, use the 2500 vanilla to attack overall Celestial Severance. We'll take 13 here, and they will choose not to attack, which is fair. There are a couple high defense things that will make your attack bounce off, but against Psychics there are a lot of very low defense threats, especially if I like set a Roman pick, which I did in the situation, so I feel like attacking was always correct in the situation. And because they didn't attack and because my life points are lower, they will experience severe pain. We will draw for a turn, flip out our... well, firstly we'll use our Amazing Dealer to use its effect to discard the Speedy, Severance, and the Amplaglee to draw 3 cards. We can easily discard a high level here because we have the Roman pick to add them back if we need to, which we will. We will add back the Speedy because we hit the Roman pick activation. We will choose to set the Candy here. Unfortunately, right now we don't have any low level normal monster that is a Psychic here, so we have to set the Candy first and tribute over it with the Bandijo. We do loot out on 300 attack, but as you will see later on in the long run, it's not gonna matter. We'll use the Bandijo's effect to add the Candy back to our hand and gain attack so that we reach 3700. Then we will tribute summon the Can Speedy. We'll use its effect on the Bandijo here. This plays around Hard Defense Mission if they had it, but obviously they don't. We do mill the Secret Order here, but we milled the Handy Lady for the Secret Order, but we didn't actually need it. We will use the Secret Order here to summon the Handy Lady. Then we will use the gem set, putting the Candy on top of her deck and shuffling the Surge Vortex Dragoon back into their action deck, and then shuffling some of their cards back into the deck. Then we will use the Double Excalibur to discard the Progress Portal, targeting the Bandijo. And now, because they have only an 800 attack monster onto the board, and our board has 4 attacks worth with big numbers, we are able to do well over lethal damage. Our next game is against Dark Galaxy. Let's see how they perform against our potential OTK here. We will draw for turn a Giftaurus, and then we'll use the Ship of 7 Treasures to discard the Handy Lady, draw 2 cards. Following it up with another ship, discarding the Giftaurus to draw 2 more cards. Then we'll use Amazing Dealer to discard everything except the other ship in case we end up breaking on level 7s, drawing 3 more cards. And we find another Handy Lady. At that point, I decide I don't need to draw any more cards. I'll just tribute set the Handy Lady, set the other 2, and pass the turn. We are just basically feigning a high defense monster here. We know it's not, but in case our opponent either gets a high attack monster to attack over it, we're gonna not take any damage here. And we don't want to take too much damage early, because if we do, then we might be cut off of our life point paying effects. And in this situation, it didn't really matter. They'll tribute summon this Hackathon Care, use its effect to burn for 500, set the solo performance and pass back to us. Not really applying that much pressure, which is not something that they can control. Obviously it didn't draw particularly well, but because of that we are able to pop off here. We'll use the ship to discard the Speedy to draw 2 cards. We'll normal summon the Roman pick, not before activating the gem set to shuffle the Hackathon Care back into the deck, using Romance pick to mill the Candy that we stacked to add the Giftaurus back to our hand. We'll tribute summon the Giftaurus, flip the Handy Lady, normal summon the Amplaglee, then use the Giftaurus effect to mill and gain 800 attack here. Now we'll tribute summon the Speedy, use its effect to target the Giftaurus, so that whenever the Giftaurus attacks, you can't activate trap cards. Then we'll use the Double Excalibur, discarding the Handy Lady to target the Giftaurus for the double attack, going to battle and attacking for over lethal with all 3 attacks. Second game here, they are going first. Now they'll draw for turn a Dimension Others, which they will normal summon alongside setting the Void Vulgar Meteor and the Parachute Colony. Interesting that they didn't decide to set everything, but yeah, it happened, I guess. We draw the Bandijo. We are currently breaking, but because of our amazing dealer, we can discard some of our cards to draw more. We'll keep the Bandijo in hand, just because it has 2500 attack stat, so even if we don't get to activate its effect, we still have a decently sturdy 2 tribute on board. So we'll do that, and then we'll tribute over the Progress Portal and the Amazing Dealer for the Bandijo, normal summon the Ampler Glee, set the Gem Set, attack over the Dimension Others, and then use the Ampler Glee to attack into the Parachute Colony, passing back to them. They will draw for turn 2 level 8s, which is pretty good, especially with the Globio they kept in hand. They will flip the Meteon, not necessary, but who cares. Normal summon the Pale Rider, tribute both of them for the Fire Lady. Normal summoning the Globio, activating its effect, shuffling 3 Dark Galaxies back to count itself as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of the Dark Galaxy, which is the Void Vulgar Requiem. They'll use the Requiem's effect to gain some attack here, set the Strange Wall attack over our monsters and pass back to us. But because we've done that, we now have lower life points than them, so let's see if we draw a Roman back here. Not yet, but we have a ship of 7 treasures to discard the Speedy. We choose to do this because otherwise the Speedy isn't really doing anything here. It doesn't have the capability of gaining attack if it doesn't have another Psychic on the board. So it'll be a 2400 that doesn't beat over either of the 2500, so we choose to discard it to either draw into more blockers or another actually good beat stick. So we draw into a Progress Portal, which isn't ideal here, and because of the Fire Lady on board, we can't use the Secret Order unless we use the Gem Set first, which I'm realizing I could have wait. No, we don't have another Gem Set target in Grave yet, which is unfortunate because then we could have used Gem Set on the Fire Lady if we need to. We find off the top of the Celestial Servants a Handy Lady, which we will send to the graveyard, so if we had the Gem Set folder, we were able to bounce the Fire Lady and use the Handy Lady of the Secret Order, which would have been nice, but unfortunately we don't get that. We making a greedy play here of normal summoning Progress Portal and activating its effect to shuffle 5 and draw 1 card because we keep a Progress Portal in our graveyard. We are trying to find a 2 tribute to tribute summon here, but unfortunately we don't actually manage to find that. We find an Excalibur, which we will set alongside the Secret Order and pass turn. If we had found the 2 tribute here, we could tribute over the Roborim, use the Gem Set on it, then Secret Order and just get in for a huge chunk of damage, but unfortunately we're going to be taking a lot of damage here as a result of our greedy Progress Portal play. They will draw for turn, nothing particularly interesting here. The Void Intercept they will set alongside the Void Corridor, then they will normal summon the Shadow Sentinel, use Requiem's attack gaining effect to gain some attack here, and then attack over all of monsters and pass back to us. We are at a precarious life total here, but it's still a playable hand. We'll draw here, not something that we can do use right away, but we have the ship to discard our level 7 here. We'll first use the Gem Set to clear our back row, putting the Roborim on top of our deck, then bouncing the Fire Lady to their deck. Then we'll use the Ship of 7 Treasures to discard the Bandijo to draw 2 cards. Then use the Secret Order to summon the Handy Lady from the graveyard, and now because of this, they are able to use the Void Intercept to discard our Gem Set, which is unfortunate, but because of our hand size here and Void Intercept's effect, because we have 2 or more cards in our hand, we still get to draw an additional card, which actually works out to our benefit here. We draw into another low-level monster, which we can use to tribute summon the Speedy, and then that allows us to keep the Roborim in hand, which is a Wind Psychic monster, which means that we have the tribute folder for the double Excalibur that we have set on the field. We can set the other Excalibur for the next turn, and then we'll go to battle, use the Handy Lady to attack over both of the monsters, and then we'll use the Ken Speedy to attack directly. They will use the Strange Wall here, which unfortunately they couldn't use it on the Handy Lady because we had used the Speedy on it, but they are still able to decrease by 500, which isn't the most ideal use of your card, but I guess it's something, I suppose. So they will reduce the damage that they take, and then we will pass back to them. They will draw for turn 2 level 8s, I suppose. They'll use a Void Corridor to discard the Transy, and then after realizing that they wanted the Transy, they'll add the Transy back to their hand, I suppose. They will normal summon the Pale Rider and the Parachute Colony, tribute summoning the Void Vulgar Transy, activating its effect to destroy the Handy Lady alongside the Equip spell. Then they'll use the Void Corridor to pitch the Fire Lady to add the Pale Rider back to their hand and normal summoning an attack, I suppose. Weird line of play, but sure. They'll use the Transy to attack over the Speedy, and because of Transy's effect, they can't attack with the Pale Rider as well. They'll pass back to us, where we can draw our cards here. Oh, look at that, we are 100 life points lower than our opponents, though we also had the Bandijo to set ourselves at a lower life point deficit as well, so I guess it doesn't exactly matter. We'll normal summon the Roman effect, activate its effect to mill 3. We don't find a single psychic monster. That's fine. We have another Roman pick to activate its effect here. We'll mill 3 and we'll find a... well, at least one psychic. We get to add the progress portal back to our hand as a result. Then we'll tribute summon the Bandijo and activate its effect to add the low-level psychic normal monster back to our hand and gaining some attack. At this point, we basically already have Lethal with the Excalibur set, but I wanted to extend for no reason. We use the progress portal to draw a card here after shuffling some cards back to be joined to another Bandijo. We don't have the life points to activate its effect, but again, it doesn't really matter. We'll normal summon this Ambler use the Excalibur, discarding the Roborum on our super Bandijo, and then we'll attack twice for lethal damage. And for the last game of this video, we are playing against what appears to be a good stuff order build. So let's see how this generic Pearl plays against our deck. So they will draw for turn a ship, which will be helpful here because they can discard the Oblivion to draw 2 cards. They'll set everything and pass back to us, but they will activate the parallel buff to summon the Oblivion back to defense just for that tempo, passing back to us after that. They will draw for turn not a particularly strong hand. 3 level 7s in hand with no way to get them onto the field isn't ideal here. We'll tribute set the Handy Lady and pass back to them. I didn't want to use the Bandijo just yet because I really wanted to get more value out of it later on in the game. And just using it to beat over an Oblivion isn't ideal either because it lets them activate Secret Order because they'll have at least one target in graveyard. So we just choose to set the Handy Lady and hope we don't die. They will draw for turn a multiple Ghost Cyclones which they aren't able to activate here. They will tribute set this Shock Dragon, normal summon the Cannon Soldier, and move the Oblivion to attack, go to battle phase, Oblivion into the Handy Lady, which this gets destroyed, and then they will attack with the Cannon Soldier, and they will pass back to us. We will draw for turn a Roman pick, and we are lower life points here, so we are able to activate its effect to mill 3 and find a Psychic here. We find at least one Psychic, so we will add back the Progress Portal of a Tribute Portal. Then we will tribute summon the Bandijo, activate its effect to add the Roborum back to our hand. Then we'll Secret Order Handy Lady from hand, set the Roborum and Gen set, go to battle, attack using the Bandijo over the Galactica Oblivion, and then we'll use the Handy Lady to attack into the Cannon Soldier here. Honestly, I forgot that they tribute set this card here, and the Shock Dragon had the potential to be extremely disastrous here. But because of because I did the play like this, it means that they aren't able to activate the Ghost Cyclones because their board will never be empty. And it lets us deal more damage this way, so which is great, I guess. It is one way of doing this. But the Shock Dragon being on the board has the potential to lose us the game, but we'll see exactly what they draw here. So they'll draw for turn, not the strongest hand you'd expect here. They'll flip the Shock Dragon up, use a Stone Excavation, discard their Ghost Cyclones to add the ship back to the hand, use ship as a desperation play to discard the candy and draw 1 card. Then they will draw a Galactic Oblivion. Unfortunately, they can't normal summon it or just get rid of it from their hand, so that Parallel Buff Gate is not live. They will use the Shock Dragon's effect to debuff our Bandijo down to 900, set the Parallel Buff Gate that they can't get the full effect of, go to battle, attack over the Bandijo and pass back to us. We got pretty lucky there, but our life points are no longer lower than our opponent, so any Romance picks that we draw aren't live anymore. We'll see what we draw here, and we draw 1 Romance pick, not live, but we still have a line here. We can use Celestial Severance to check the top card of our deck, and we find a Candy, which is very good. We'll send the Candy to the graveyard, and earlier we didn't have a jam set target in our graveyard yet, so we are able to use it now because we send the Candy off of the Celestial Severance, returning the Shock Dragon back to their deck and shuffling some additional cards back into the deck. And if you were to do the math here, we have exact lethal with the Handy Lady, the Severance, and the Roborum that we just flipped up. We'll set everything, go to battle, and it turns out they don't have any response here, and we'll go in for exact lethal with Roborum for game. Game 2 here, they will go first. They'll draw a ship with 7 treasures, virtually the same play as before, but this time we're discarding the Shock Dragon to draw 2 cards. Normal summon the Cannon Soldier, the Sea Dragon Knight, and sending everything else and passing back to them. They did draw the Mirror Force this time, which has the potential to be quite disastrous, but we'll see how that goes. We'll draw for turn, then we'll use the ship with 7 treasures to discard the Handy Lady to draw 2 cards. Severance will activate its effect to check the top 3, and find off top will send the Romance pick in this case, just in case we need to loop Romance picks later on in the game. We'll tribute summon the Giftaris, normal summon the Progress Portal, activate Giftaris' effect to gain 400 attack, sending the Torrential Tribute, attacking into the Sea Dragon Knight and passing back to them. Honestly, I think I should have attacked the Cannon Soldier here, and then I leave the Sea Dragon Knight on board. We knew that they were on Ghost Cyclone, which was the intention of the play, but they could have just sacked the Cannon Soldier to its own effect to free up their board for the Ghost Cyclone if they had drawn into it, so this is definitely a misplay on my part. This does technically do 100 more damage, but that's definitely not worth it here. So let's see if they find the Ghost Cyclone here. Nope. But they are able to find a Phoenix Dragon, which will pair nicely with the Shock Dragon here, as they will discard it off the ship with 7 treasures to draw 2 more cards. Normal summon a Phoenix Dragon, activating its effect to discard and add the Shock Dragon back to the hand, which they will normal summon. Then they will activate Magical Stone Excavation to add a ship to hand. But because they have 1 additional card in hand and no way to use the ship with 7 treasures, they aren't able to use the Parallel Above Gate alongside it as well. So use Shock Dragon to attack over the Gift Terrace and then pass back to us. Then we will draw for turn. Yeah, we have Secret Order, so this is immediately pretty good. We'll Triple Summon the Speedy, activate the Secret Order summoning from hand. Then we'll normal summon the Progress Portal, activating the Speedy to target itself, so that we can use the Speedy to attack first. And if they have the Mirror Force here, then the damage is already done for the Speedy, so they will be able to kill the Speedy and the Progress Portal, but the Handy Lady will still be able to go through, and the damage from the Speedy has already been dealt. So we'll do that, and they will choose to be a bit greedy here, and they won't activate the Mirror Force just yet, which is interesting. We'll attack with all our monsters and pass back to them. They will draw for turn. That's playable. They'll use the ship to discard the Neo to draw 2 cards. Then they will use Sea Dragonite and Phoenix Dragon. Sea Dragonite will check and find out that we have a Torrential Tribute. They'll use the Phoenix Dragon to add the Shock Dragon back to their hand. Normal summoning the Shock Dragon, using the Stone Excavation to add the Parallel Above Gate back to the hand, and then using it, I suppose, out of desperation at this point, since like I assume they just assumed that they were dead already. Or maybe they were trying to force out the Torrential Tribute. Either way, we in response to the Parallel Above Gate, because we know that they have no cards in their hand, we'll use the Torrential Tribute. Even if they did have the Secret Order for follow-up, we were still fine. I was completely fine taking 3,200 damage since we still had 4,000 to go. And they were at a precarious life total here, so it was pretty good to use the Torrential right now to wipe the board. They didn't have the Secret Order, so they'll just pass back to us, where we will draw a Secret Order which will contest the Mirror Force here, summoning a Handy Lady to attack. No reason to do anything because the Handy Lady plays through everything now, attacking with it and just ending the game on the spot. Now that we're back with the deck, what are my final thoughts? So this is definitely a deck that has a lot of kill pressure. I've shown multiple games where I was able to kill on turn 3, but this deck is quite piece reliant. In those games, you saw that I needed like the Excalibur, the Gem Set, and whatnot. I needed a lot of things to go right, finding the Romantic, getting the correct spells in rotation, getting the correct monsters to go with the spells or the other monsters in the deck. And there are things that can definitely go wrong if you don't find your specific pieces in time, like finding all your Bandijos before you find any of your low-level monsters, finding your Secret Orders before you find your Handy Ladies and whatnot. And not finding the Excalibur sometimes loses your game as well, but if you find too many of them, it's not particularly useful. And like, despite the fact that the kill pressure of this deck is definitely very high, sometimes you just can't find your pieces in time and you just roll over and die just because you don't find your candies or your Roborums and whatnot. And sometimes if you get hit too fast early on in the game, you do just run out of life points to actually activate any of your cool effects. That's why we're playing things like Speedy and Gift Terrace, because they don't require life points like Bandijo, but if you drop below 1,000, then Bandijo just can't activate at all. Same with the Prophecy Phrase and the Asphalt, which we're not playing. And yeah, like, it's like, despite the fact that it definitely has like a very high damage ceiling, that's not unique. There are other decks that have a really high damage ceiling, like Gate Order, like Thunderbolt, and all of these are already very popular decks that you have to contend with. And even in the high roll department, Thunderbolt is also like somewhat high roll. If you find like all your level 7s early with your Scale Lib and your picks and whatnot, you can pop over turn 3 also. So it's not like this deck is faster than those decks by any means. Though this deck does have a more consistent tempo game plan, like you can very consistently just like punch your opponent. Obviously, if you get hit too fast, then you'll just like stop being able to do any meaningful plays. But as long as you still have the life points to work with, you can still do some pretty strong plays, especially if you find your strong spells in rotation alongside your strong monsters, because just the monsters alone aren't enough to warrant playing this deck. It's these spells like Gem Set and the double Excalibur that really do it and give a solid reason to play this deck compared to any other deck in the format. So overall, I think this deck is fine. I still think I'd play, if you want a good Psychic deck, I still play Thunderbolt over this. But not only is this deck more Psychic focused for people who want that, it is also quite fun. I will say that it is definitely quite fun. And just double attacking with Excalibur is very satisfying. That'll be it for this video. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.